What's up, guys, and welcome back to the channel. So I remember when this panel was first introduced to the fandom, it caused a lot of questions. It caused a lot of people to be confused when it comes to what exactly is a selfish wish on the Dragon Balls, and if a selfish wish made on the Dragon Ball brings doom, how does that not contradict a bunch of wishes previously made in the series, such as Oolong's? Even Goku's on Namek was made to essentially also serve to allow him to fight Frieza on Namek. So I'm going to essentially use this video to break down why Piccolo's wish is so ridiculously cool, and why, despite the fact that Minato said that selfish wishes bring doom, there's a bit more context to the use of the Dragon Balls themselves. So first of all, there is no such thing as true selflessness. This is something I want to get out of the way, because even whenever you make a selfless decision, you are making it because you want to make it, right? It's kind of a contradictory idea for there to be a complete selfless state of being, despite the fact it's something talked about in a lot of mythologies and things of that nature. And so because of this idea, intent is what's important. And so despite the fact sometimes wishes made on the Dragon Balls seem selfish, because they're made with selfless intent, that is what essentially prevents the doom that the Dragon Balls themselves can create. So for example, a lot of people like to bring up the Oolong wish, because he just wished for a pair of panties. But if you look at the context of the wish, why did he wish for the pair of panties? He wished for him in order to stop Pilaf and everyone else from essentially taking over the world. He essentially saved the world with his wish. And that is a perfect example of the idea of purifying selfish intent, which is something that's heavily centered around not only martial arts, but Buddhism, which the original story that Dragon Ball was based on is heavily centered around Journey to the West. In fact, the entire idea of Oolong wishing for a pair of panties is completely based on the idea that the character he was based on, despite the fact that he constantly had impure intentions, he purified his impure intentions and used that to allow the characters on the Journey to the West to complete their journey. So even that whole comedic idea of Oolong wishing for a pair of panties is based in an idea from Journey to the West itself. And it's worth it to note that the character that Oolong is based on was the only character who didn't get any special rank, because by the time the Journey to the West ended, he had not purified himself of his perverted nature. And so here Toriyama is playing on that through Oolong. So that brings me to the next portion of this video concerning the Dragon Balls, and that is Goku's wish on Namek. And you'll notice that throughout the story, this is just something that happens reoccurringly. Like Krillin, you know, his wish is centered around the fact that he's always had impure intent in the form of wanting a female companion. 17's wish, for example, was centered around the idea that he originally did not care whether or not the mortals survived the Tournament of Power, and of course, by the end of it, he wished them all back, right? So the entire idea of the Dragon Balls centers around purifying impure intentions. That is what the idea of the Dragon Ball centers around, and that's why you'll notice this trend, and this trend also extends to Goku on Namek. When it comes to Goku on Namek, it's probably one of the most important instances of a wish in Dragon Ball, because it shows you that Goku, even when he wants to fight someone, he's doing it with pure intentions. Now, this is something that was established countless times in the original Dragon Ball through not only Goku being able to ride Nimbus, due to the fact that he wanted to practice martial arts with pure intentions, which sort of, you know, summarizes his nature as an Earthling, and also surviving the Devilman's Beam and things of that nature. So it was heavily established in the original Dragon Ball that Goku practices martial arts with a pure heart and pure intentions, and despite the fact what you are seeing from Goku here seems selfish on Namek, it's actually a purified version of what the Saiyans were. This is also the story's way of essentially communicating to you that Earth purified Goku's nature as a Saiyan, and Goku as a Super Saiyan has found the perfect balance of his nature as a Saiyan and his nature as an Earthling, and that is the reason he's a bit more egotistical, but he is still doing everything that he is doing with pure intentions. He's controlling the anger, the thing that normally hinders people in martial arts to cause them to do impure acts, with his pure heart as an Earthling. And so the Dragon Balls, much like their predecessors, the Dragon Jewels, which are essentially objects that represent Buddhism and represent the idea of purifying selfish intent through a Buddhist monk using it, which causes a chain reaction and causes everyone else to essentially become a better person through seeing the selfless act that this Buddhist monk commits by using the Dragon Jewels, the objects that the Dragon Balls are based on, to do selfless things, right? So Akira Toriyama is playing on not only what the Dragon Balls were based on, but also who Goku is based on, because Sun Wukong is sort of a play on the Dragon Jewels himself, because of the effect that he has on the many villages that he travels to, and the fact that his journey is essentially him purifying the selfish intent that he had at the beginning of the Journey to the West, and essentially becoming the victorious fighting Buddha, a Buddhist martial artist who can purify his use of violence through martial arts, becoming someone who can use violence with pure intentions, pretty much in a pure heart. That's essentially what Sun Wukong is, by the end of his story, is he is a Buddha who can use violence with pure intentions, which is why he is so ridiculously dramatically important to the ideas of martial arts. Because Sun Wukong himself is a representation of the idea of martial arts, the idea that you take the monkey in your brain, the anger you feel, your survival instincts, things of that nature, and purifying it, and only using that with pure intentions through martial arts, which is why Buddhism, Sun Wukong, martial arts, all of this stuff is completely inseparable from each other. Now, the final thing I want to discuss is King Piccolo in comparison to Piccolo, the modern era. Now, this is a perfect example of what I'm talking about because King Piccolo's previous wish is an unpurified version of Piccolo's current wish in Dragon Ball Super Hero, which is why Piccolo's wish is so ridiculously cool, because it really is King Piccolo's character coming full circle and being purified. That's really what his wish represents, and the series does a really good job illustrating this, right? So when King Piccolo made his original wish, the reason it bit him in the ass is because he made a wish with selfish intent, which was ultimately his doom, and Goku served as his karma, in a sense, which is something else that Sun Wukong constantly did in Journey to the West. He was a representation of the karma that you would have to deal with, the justice that you would have to deal with as a result of your evil acts. So Akira Toriyama is also playing on that there. But Piccolo is taking his desire to grow stronger as a martial artist and as a warrior and purifying it and using it not for selfish intentions, not for his own survival, not to feed his own ego, not to make sure that he is the most powerful so he can rule over everyone, but to do it for what you are supposed to use it for as a martial artist, which is to protect those around you and to just survive in a life or death scenario. So you are actually seeing in real time, despite the fact that Piccolo is making a seemingly selfish wish through having his potential unlocked, his intention with that wish is to essentially practice the principles of martial arts. And this is something that has been established in Dragon Ball from the very beginning. Kami first establishes that, without coming out and saying it, that the Dragon Balls are meant to be used within the principles of martial arts itself. It's really funny because the original items that the Dragon Balls are based on, the Dragon Jewels, were meant to be used with the principles of Buddhism in mind. And Buddhism had a huge impact on martial arts. It had a huge impact on the ideas and the practices within martial arts. So martial arts is essentially disguised Buddhism in Dragon Ball, which is a really freaking cool thing that Akira Toriyama did, because it's not really Buddhism, it's just the effect that Buddhism had on martial arts that people have to use in order to use these Dragon Balls correctly, which is why the whole idea of selfishness and selflessness is so prominent in the Dragon Ball series, because that was important when it came to the very items the Dragon Balls themselves were based on. So Kami establishes that we're supposed to use the Dragon Balls with this sort of principle in mind, and the Nameks themselves, as I talked about in my previous video, have learned through experience, through likely using the Dragon Balls with selfish intent in the past, that they need to purify their intent and essentially accept that they're selfish by nature, but purify that need to survive and thrive as a species through these principles of selflessness, essentially the ideas of martial arts, to continue to survive as a species. So the entire idea of the Dragon Balls and the way that they're supposed to be used, the way that Kami speaks of it in the original Dragon Ball and the way that the Nameks speak of it, and just the way it's overall portrayed when each individual character makes their wish and the themes around each wish, the reason all of these things function the way they do is because of the very items that the Dragon Balls themselves are based on, and the fact that Dragon Ball is a series that essentially encourages the principles of martial arts, and through encouraging the principles of martial arts, they are also encouraging, without coming out and saying it, the principles of Buddhism, because Buddhism and Taoism had a huge impact on martial arts. And so, despite the fact that, Dragon Ball is a shonen martial arts based manga, much like Naruto and all these other manga, there's heavy Buddhist symbolism. Buddhism is extremely important to Japan. But anyway, I could go on about this stuff for hours, but I really hope you enjoyed this video. Don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe, and I will see you guys in the next one. Peace.